All right, welcome back to the FranklinPlanner podcast. My name is George Wright III, your co-host. I'm here joined with John Harding, board member, owner, FranklinPlanner, and David Anderson. How you doing, brother?
I'm fantastic.
John, how are you?
I'm doing great.
I know. Well, you flew out here, so we're here in the studio because David flew out here for this episode. We're really super excited about it. So let me give everybody a little bit of a cue up on what we're going to be talking about. Last time we had an episode on mission, vision, values, but what really drives greatness? That's what we're going to talk about. Is it talent, passion, destiny? David challenges that idea. Obviously, with some of the stuff he does, he delivers one of the most powerful speeches that I've seen on a TED Talk in a while. And so I want to kind of get into that a little bit. So, John, you came across David. You brought him to my attention. How did you meet? Like, what was the connection? And then we can kind of cue it over to him to give some background. Like, how did it come together?
Well, I'm glad we're here. We were prepping last time, our last episode on mission, vision, values, kind of that pyramid base.
Yep.
And I was doing a search, David, for great stories, for great, struggles, and then also mission stories. I came upon this, this TED Talk popped up, 2016, Austria, right?
Yeah.
And I clicked this, and within the first few seconds, I'm like, wow.
You were hooked.
Yeah, and then as the story went on, I'm like, this guy is pretty incredible. So my intro or response to you is, as I heard his story, I thought we have got to at least reference this.
Yeah.
And then you and I talked after and said, we've got to reach out to David. And David was super generous in a very busy schedule. We just spent 2 hours driving here. He's fitting it between daddy-daughter dates and other things, but that's it.
So let's get your background. Like, why don't you kind of give us for those of you that don't know you, give us a little bit of your background and your story so they know where you come from, and then we can kind of get into some of these cool topics.
Yeah. Well, first off, I am elated to be here. I think the work of not just a planner, but I think helping people define mission and helping them live the best life they can, the best life that they can, is a worthwhile goal in life.
Yeah.
And so, look, they can go to the TED Talk and check it out. Who am I? David Anderson, TED Talk. Who am I? Living your life mission. But essentially, I want to say first, if I can start off here, like I really do stand on the shoulders of those who came before me, whether I read through books or mentors that were in person that I sought out and were able to glean wisdom from. And so when I tell this story, I want people to also know in their life that those, I just want to stop and just thank those people who were amazing. Pastor Al Toledo, Mark Yarnell, Darrell Nasui, Ms. Gruka, teachers, Duff, Mr. Wong. I had a lot of people who, for some reason, just maybe my curiosity, maybe it was my energy, they just gave me nuggets, right? Gave me different things along the way. And I'll be remiss if I didn't mention and thank them, C. Cole Dillon, just a lot of people who did a lot of great things. But so story starts really in Mississippi. My dad's from Mississippi. Mom's from Louisiana. My grandfather, World War II hero, killed 300-something Nazis. He was underage, enlisted early, 16, 17. We're talking the 1940s, right? Leaves, come back to Mississippi, black man in Mississippi.
Wow.
1940s, 50s.
Yeah, right.
Not a lot there, right? And so he effectively leaves Mississippi, goes to Michigan, passes away, right? And then the family goes back to Mississippi. So my father wanted to leave Mississippi and get north for more opportunity, okay? Comes to Chicago, marries my mother. Mother was beautiful, fine as wine, they call her, and they got married. Upon her having birth to my brother, she developed schizophrenia.
Oh, wow.
Okay? This is 1980s, right? Where we didn't have the mental health awareness we have today, John.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We didn't have that. And anyone listening that has dealt with mental health, you understand this. And so basically, it just ravished my family. The divorce happened, everything got confusing, all kind of stuff happened. And so here I am in the, South Chicagoland area, trying to navigate life in a very broken situation, not anyone's fault, just a broken situation, and trying to figure things out, right? Neither of my parents had a college education, all that kind of stuff. And so I was in a situation where I had to come back home, went to college, I want to get to all the streets, the gangs, everything that comes along with metropolitan Chicago life,
right.
Especially if you don't have wealth, you don't have income, right? It's just what it is. I tell people all the time, people don't join gangs most of the time, 80%, because they're bad people. It's community. It's survival, right? It's how do I survive in this environment? I need people that have my back, family, and things like that. So, that's why they join these things. Around the world, not just America. You go around the world, you see the same thing. Yeah. Young men with no mission, no vision, no direction, right, are attracted to these institutions. So here I am, come back. The gangs are petitioning my brother. He's 5 years younger than me. My sister is basically in 7th grade. She's reading on a 4th grade level. And I'm like stuck with, at this moment, this crossroad, like, okay, I kind of made it out, not really made it out, but not going to let my brother and sister kind of suffer and figure it out. So there was this moment, right, that I was telling John the story. I had come home carrying groceries a mile with 90-degree weather because we didn't have a car. And I came in, my mother has a schizophrenic episode on me, okay? And I love my mother. If she ever hit, Mom, I love you to death, right? But she has a episode, and I break down in the bathroom and I'm crying. And I'm just like, she yells at me because I got turkey bacon instead of pork bacon. That's the type of, I'm talking about a big episode. And so it's this revelation that happens where I realize that in order to survive this, I have to have something more that's just more than making money, right? I got to have something more than just wanting to make it, more than just, I need something core to my soul that's like an operating system. I need something to propel me. And I heard about creating a mission statement. I heard about having a mission. And in that moment, it was birthed out of that. I literally sat down in the living room and I said, I pledge allegiance to my success. I pledge allegiance to do my very best. I do believe I will succeed. Nothing will stop me. Nothing will drop me. I have a purpose to fulfill. I have a future that's very real. No matter what happens or goes on around me, I will not sink. It will not drown me. I pledge allegiance to my success. I pledge allegiance to do my very best. And it was in that moment that all of a sudden I had something that was beyond, because I could believe that I can commit to myself, commit to, okay, I'm doing this for these things, for these reasons. And then my life took off from there. I really think that when you really, from a core of who you are, everyone's story is different. Everyone has a different human experience. When you really dive into who you're called to be and what you're supposed to do, and you're able to plan that out, and even during that process, I learned about the FranklinPlanner, and I couldn't afford the FranklinPlanner. It was like $600, whatever number one. Yeah. So I got
not something you can handle, right?
I got a page of it, right? I got that page. I worked that page. Then I created like another scribble thing, and I used it through the, hey, how do I spend time with my brother, spend time with my sister? How do I, my mom? I got to take over some of her, situation, because she, how do I manage these episodes? How do I manage this? And look, I don't want to brag, but I think when you commit, something happens. I think God does something. I think, whatever you want to call it, the universe, spirits, something happens when you decide to become. Right? When you make a decision that I'm going to become, not arrive, but I'm going to set the goals and I'm going to become. I don't know what it is. I talk to people around the world. You hear stories from all over the world where people decide. Viktor Frankl's a great story, the one, Search for Meaning, right? He's in the middle of a concentration camp, for goodness sake. And he decides, you know what? I'm going to take this situation and I'm going to become joyous, happy. I'm going to believe every day that I'm coming out of this concentration camp.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how much more could I come out of my situation and, you know, and succeed? So
it's actually interesting you say that, because and John, when we talked about this on the last podcast, we talk about mission, right? And having a mission. But you made a really interesting point that I love, and that is there's a lot of people dealing with a lot of stuff right now. And maybe they don't know what a mission is, maybe they have one, maybe whatever. But it was the decision that you said you made that triggered it, right? You didn't know what the answer would be. You didn't know where you were going to do it, how you're going to do it, but you made a decision, and that led you to kind of your mission, which I know we want to dig into. But I think that's interesting, John, because a lot of times we talk about mission as this ambiguous thing. And the first step, it's really the decision to have your life be guided by something, right? And that's what pulled you out of where you were, it sounds like.
That's right. And I think it's a difference here. And for those that have a traditional faith practice, right? You have to like interweave it, but you have to separate the fact that your faith practice is a guiding light on how you're going to live, right? But your mission practice is what you're going to do every day in your living, right? It's because everybody's personality, who they are, is different, and so what I would call my big rocks are different than your big rocks or small rocks or short-term goals. Yeah, and so you need that missional guiding practice to help you go along and accomplish these things. But, you know, look, we've learned about masterminds for years. People have learned about, you know, where one or two are gathered together, you know, something in the midst. Yeah. 1 + 1 = 3, synergy, right? Yeah. We know for a fact, you bring people together, right? It's like that mission almost becomes another person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I actually think that mission is the point that I think a lot of people are missing.
George, I'd like to go back to something. It's what you said, David. This Pledge of Allegiance, your mission, it's incredible to me. I think this is what caught our interest.
Yeah.
That in the midst of everything that was going on for you, your world caving in, you had the good sense to do that. Tell us about that. Tell us about this Pledge of Allegiance that you just shared with us, and just how that evolved.
Like you said it 100 times, right?
Yeah.
Or a million times, maybe? I don't know.
Day, probably thousands. I said, I do stand on the shoulders of others. I had a spiritual leader, you know, Albert Toledo, who had talked about from his stage and his pulpit about creating a mission in life, you know, having something that, you know, physically you can get to. And I had heard it, but it was in that moment when you're going through that type of trauma, it resonated. So I literally sat down, and all I started with was, I pledge allegiance. I had grown up with the pledge, you know, I pledged to the United States of America. You know, I was like, well, what if I pledge to myself first, right?
An internal commitment.
Which that's why I talk about, like, sometimes there's those external things which can come across, you know, the company, your faith space, your, you know, different things, but internally, how are you committing to yourself? And so
when you said Viktor Frankl, right? Like he had control of was his inner game, right?
That was it.
Okay.
That's all you could control.
Yeah. Keep going.
I'm not going to change my mother's mental health. I'm not going to change the neighborhood that I can't get out of it right now, right? All I can change is what's inside of myself. That's all I can do. And so I do that in order to do it. And people are in situations, I'm sure, where, like, you know, you're dealing with your company or your family, whatever. You can change you. You can control that part of you. There's not a lot of things sometimes you can control. So I just started there. I pledge allegiance to my success. I pledge allegiance to do my very best. I stopped right there, right? And then it was other things I just thought about throughout that day, that week. You know, I do believe I will succeed, right? Yeah, I do. I believe that I can actually succeed beyond whatever it is. Nothing will stop me and nothing will drop me, period. I'm not going to give up, you know? And we talk about, you know, I got a plan to fulfill. I have a purpose that's very real. These are things that are like, it's more of, at least in my mission statement that I would create at the time, it was more self-affirmation, because I had to get things in belief. So, you know, people may be in situations where, you know, like, you know, whatever characteristic life has given you. Right. And I've realized this, around the world, right? There are characteristics, stereotypes, and things. This is how we frame life in the world.
Yeah.
So someone says, okay, you're a white man from this state, from this, you must be like this.
Yeah.
You're a black kid from this part of the city to this thing, you must be like this. You're a immigrant from this part of the world, you must,
you're programmed.
The programming, right?
Yeah.
The propaganda, the thing. And so you have to sometimes undo your own programming. And the only way you can do that is by speaking to yourself and the subconscious there and writing things down, right? But unprogramming yourself of what those beliefs are, right? Because they've been coming, they're going to hit you. And some of them in society are there to protect us, right? Some of them in society are there and they harm us, right? Especially when it comes to what we're supposed to do.
But you used your mission as a way to take control of your scenario.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Take control of your scenario, and you can do that by being intentional about who you want to become, who you want to what you have to actually do. And it's not perfect. You're going to fall and but if you keep doing it, you make these incremental steps. And I love what's, in 7 Habits, Stephen Covey talks about is like, it's the personal victories you start to have inside that matters. Nobody else knows, but you know what? 3 months ago, I probably would have complained. I would have gave up. I would have did whatever. And now I didn't do that. I had a solution. I decided to do something else. So anyway, I hope that.
No, it is. And it's actually interesting because, John, I was going to ask you to mention this. We talked about it off camera. It's the story you tell yourself too. And you program the story you wanted to program. You mentioned, it was so ironic that your quote today in the Franklin Planner kind of went to that. I don't know if you want to kind of read that for the listeners. Let
me do it. And I would just lead into this by saying, it seems like, David, you're a great example of leading your life. Now, you guys haven't said that yet, but taking that responsibility to lead your life. So this is the quote in this week's Franklin Planner. Who wants to read about success? ? It is the early struggle which makes a good story. Catherine Ann Porter. Your early struggle, you reached down there, you took responsibility, and somehow, without knowing Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, you looked out there and you really did plan with the end in mind. And then you even jumped ahead in that personal victory, like you were saying, and within your personal constitution, you have some specific things that are your priorities.
Yeah. Right. And it's when you said personal constitution. Now, here's the thing I've learned. Talk about mission, right?
Yeah.
What I started to read, because at that point, as you know the story, over the next 4 years, I read, so the audience knows, I read roughly about 600 books by myself independently. Like, no, literally.
Wow.
I had guys giving me books. Mark Yarnell was giving me books. Mentor Ernest Fenton. Ernest Fenton was giving me books. I mean, I was just reading. And what I started to realize, the trend I saw, when you talk about nation building, right? What really makes America great, right? How do countries like Singapore go from like nothing to you start to realize that you look at the constitution of the country, right? And what they set out to do.
Yeah.
Right? What becomes their mantra. Many people don't know, when I lived in China for a while, I saw in China, like they had this thing like, okay, we're going to do this, that, and we're going to create Chinese characteristics. We're going to, if you read their manifestos, Chinese characteristics, we're going to create the Chinese dream. We're going to do whatever it is. They set out to things, right? If you look at Rwanda came out of genocide, right? It's one of the most developed countries in Africa right now. Okay? Like, it's amazing. Was in genocide, millions killed, everything else. President comes up, Kagame, it's a book called Rwanda Inc., you ever heard of it, and creates literally a constitution and a mission for the country, right? Yeah. We're going to take responsibility for our country. We know what happened. We know there were external people that came and instigated this. We know what, forget that. But today, we are going to take personal responsibility and create a constitution for the country. And Rwanda has boomed, right? Yeah. And they had nothing but young people to like create. And so there are a lot of examples where you see this. And I said, why can't we do that just in our own interpersonal lives?
It's so funny you say that, because that is so true. And it's back to leading your life, right? John, you mentioned that a minute ago. And I had made a note that I was going to ask you about, because I want to tie this down for our listeners too, right? How do you lead your life? And you talk about this personal message, and I wrote a note here to myself. I wanted to ask, life becomes really powerful with a personal pledge. And you had mentioned you taught your sister this. So I want to tie it, because some people might be like, oh, this is David Anderson. Like, he's amazing. Like, he's a rock star. He probably just did it all right. We know that's not the case because of your background, but you had a sister who was struggling in school, and you kind of taught her. So I want you to speak to this idea that you just capped off with personal pledge and how it changes life.
So it's funny talking to my sister, and I love her. I hope she hears this. So my sister, I never forget, 7th grade, I go to the school that day for a conference on behalf of my sister, sit down with the teacher, and she's like, hey, David, look, and this was the time when we had the policy of the land, which is why I tell people policy is great, policy impacts, but policy can't do what you can do for yourself. It just can't, right?
Yeah.
And so No Child Left Behind was very, part of the policy back then. And I saw how it was good intended, but also how it hurt, because you started to pass along kids that were not ready for the next grade.
Yeah.
So my sister was technically one of those. 4th grade level reading, she was in the 7th grade. And I'm sitting here going, holy cow, how did I miss this? First off, what the heck's going on? So I'm like, okay, hey, guess what, sis? We're going to catch you up, right? You're going to graduate high school, right? And you're going to pledge allegiance to your success, and you're going to be able to do your very best. Like I said, look, your brother, I don't care about you getting A's. I care about you got an A because you gave it everything you had. And if you can give me everything you have, right? I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to support you. We're going to make this happen. And luckily, thank God, she not even graduated from high school. Even in the midst of my sister, her senior year in college, she ended up having, the mental health thing sometimes can hit the kids and genetics. She ended up having a schizophrenic breakdown, right? You ready for this? It took us years. We got her back, and she still went back and finished college.
Wow.
Right? Because inside of her, and she came to me, I was just happy she was alive. She was great. She said, brother, I gotta finish. I gotta get my degree. I gotta finish school. I said, hey, I don't want to put any stress on you, whatever the case is. I'm happy you're good and alive. She said, nope, I pledge allegiance to my success. I want to do my very best. I can finish this. And thank God, a couple of years ago, she actually walked across the stage. The point I'm making in this is that, like, there is a truth to that personal constitution that people have to make. And part of that is every day making those steps. Sorry, I don't mean, John.
No, and it starts with the decision you said, right? And then it turns into this personal constitution. But, John, I was going to ask you, because we talked about this in our mission. A lot of times people see these mission statements as things that are out there as like a compass and a North Star. I really like this conversation because it's talking about using something you can control and create a narrative in yourself to lead you in your life. And so a mission statement in general, a pledge, I mean, does it always have to be, this perfectly eloquent type of deal? Like you're pretty eloquent with yours, but you've developed thousands and thousands, probably tens of thousands of mission statements, people over the years, with FranklinPlanner. But do you think sometimes people feel that it's just this ambiguous big thing and that just having that personal pledge is just as important?
Well, I do. I think, and that's why it's so great to have David here. And I want to ask you this, and George, just touch on that. It seems like somehow you had the good sense to do it. Then you wrote down some words that are like this allegiance, and it tapped into you because a fundamental premise, George, is that we all agree, I think here, but many people don't. There is just greatness in everyone.
Yes.
Right? 100%. And there's a leader.
Great
in
point.
And if there is a leader, then certainly you can lead your own life. Yeah. And George, I think, you think about a mission, it's your purpose, it's an anchor. But how did it help you? And maybe this will add more to it. You had it. All of the adversity didn't quit coming with you. So how did it help you bust through the storm, go kind of keep some direction, even though you're pushed and pressure?
It's a great question.
How did that help you give us some examples?
Well, in that moment, you realize that things happen to you in life. Like, you can choose to get bitter, right? Or you can choose to get better.
Mm.
And I made a choice. I'm not going to get bitter. I'm going to get better. And I want to thrive and not just survive, right? Because sometimes when pressures of life are happening, you can get into survival mode. And that's the worst place to be. It's almost like you are literally you put yourself in the passenger seat, in the back seat of your own car, right? When you go into survival mode, right?
Yeah.
And so to thrive, it means that you put yourself in the driver's seat and you start to say, okay, what can I do in this situation? What can I control? And you can control yourself and the workings of yourself. And so so I'll give you an example. Like even after I got through, one was that I started to educate myself, right? Reading books. And I kid you not, like I have the books at home. I really started to just read 10, 15 books a month while I was working 3 jobs. Okay. I literally would get up in the morning, go to Starbucks at like 5:30 a.m., 4 a.m. I would leave that. I was teaching character education in school. I got a job from Melody LaLuz, who gave me like to go around different places around the city to go in and talk to students about just character education stuff, right? And then I would essentially leave there. I would do construction, like as a labor worker or some other job, go help out at my church and do things, whatever it was, odd jobs, come back home around between 6 and 8, then have my sister pull out her homework, okay? And literally like go through her homework for the night. And it was like that until like 11, 12 o'clock, get back up at 4:30, go to Starbucks part-time, then go do the character education work. Then it was like just the grind, the grind. And I would get on the bus, I would read while I was on the bus, right? Read my books, right? Get back to it. But I knew I was going somewhere, right? I knew that I was creating, so I was on a mission for myself and what I had taken responsibility for and what I was going to do. So I think, to the audience, it's like there are those things that happen. But I want to give this story. So at the time I enrolled in Chicago State University, okay? I want to study finance and economics. At that time, the beacon of that was to go to Goldman Sachs, okay? I go to the career development office and they say to me, the guy's like, David, I worked at Duke, I worked at Rochester, he worked at, some prestigious schools. He's like, we got one person into Goldman. He's like, David, like you can't go to Goldman from this school. And I'm just like, yes, I can. Who created these rules? Like,
yeah.
This is a true story, right?
You haven't read my Pledge of Allegiance yet, right?
Right. Hold on, this is a true story. So this is an honest to God true story. So I ended up finding out there was this is when, now all the schools have these like micro joint programs you can go to. You can go to BYU, Wharton, whatever the case is. So Harvard was piloting this thing, and they were piloting some programs where they were taking particularly people in state schools and bringing them into Harvard and kind of doing like a joint. You could study there, do joint programs. At the end of it, you would get a certificate or you would get paper from Harvard. So I was doing that. And then I finally got like an interview with Goldman, okay? Went to the interview. They liked me. It was interesting. I didn't hear from them for weeks. I gave them an email, right? Send an email, whatever the case is. They ended up responding. It was like, oh, we're sorry, we forgot about you. Can you fly to New York tomorrow? I go to New York. Goldman puts you through the gauntlet. Like 11 interviews in New York, whatever. At the end of the interview, I'll never forget, the guy said, why should we choose you, man? I said, look, I was going up against kids that way more money, way more privilege, way more everything. I said, look, let me tell you this. You know my story. The fact that I'm here is I'm happy. But if you give me this shot, I guarantee you there's nobody you will interview or have interviewed that will want this more than I do. There's nobody. He looked at me, he said, man, I believe you. And they gave me the job. I was the first person from my university to ever get into Goldman. The HR lady came to me, called me up. She was like, hey, what school are you from again? Is this school? She couldn't believe it, right? Literally, they had to add me to the system. Add the school to the system. I ended up getting about 3 other kids after that into Goldman for that. Hold on, wait. Wow. And it was during the financial crisis.
Oh, wow.
Right? When everybody's laying off, everybody's going through craziness, right? I entered finance literally during the height of the Great Recession, right? The point I'm making here is that there are those obstacles, but what the great thing about that was when I went into that career development office and I handed that guy my offer letter, I said, in so many words, I was saying to him, like, you can't. And so there are people that will always doubt you in life. You know, they're always doubting what can be possible. But what the reality is, look, like all things are possible. You can create. Who thought we would be putting people in space? Average people going to space, right? Who thought there was a time when a bridge didn't exist? You know, they created bridges. Cars didn't exist. All these things we have in our modern life, somebody had to believe it, think it, create it, right? The first Black president didn't exist. Okay, now we have the first woman the first man to do this or accomplish this feat, the Wright brothers, and putting, planes. Like there's so many things that if you commit to yourself and commit to what you believe your God-given gifts are, what you're created here to do, man, you can go and do almost anything.
Yeah, it's such an inspiring story because I think what I've learned over time, and I know you've seen this, John, is people have all kinds of different scenarios and situations. And the people that create not only the greatest successes are not the people that want less obstacles. They're the ones that want to be bigger than their obstacles and grow bigger than their obstacles. And I love how you tied it back to being, having these personal commitments, personal pledge. That is so true. That is so true. All right, great. So let's do this, guys, because we could go on for days, I think, and we may, but not on this episode. David, you've had a great story. You've come from challenges. You've overcome them. At the end of the day, best-selling author, global entrepreneur, Harvard speaker, White House contributor. Yeah. Like you've done so much by being grounded in this mission, but it always kind of comes back, and you guys both talked about this before, about what do you want to be remembered by and how do you want to be remembered? And what do you want your life to be about? And so where does that put you now? Like, talk to me about that.
So, when you read a lot of books, right, and you travel the world, you do this stuff, you start to see similarities. I read something a long time ago. It was about a deathbed study. It was like what people say on their deathbeds, right? And it tied into three things that people wanted to be remembered by. And it tied into three areas. It was they wish they would have risked more, right? Took risks, done things that they always wanted to do but never did because they were afraid, right? So don't live by fear. They wish they would have reflected more, right? Because reflection gives you insight. Right? You need that insight, which is what even part of the planner does, right? Let's just be honest. It gives you those moments of reflection or be able to write down and look back over like, wow, I did all that in 1 year. Oh, I did all that last week, right? Okay. But also the third thing was doing more things that lived on, that lived legacy, that lived beyond them. And so, my first thing is that, my kids, Alita, David the III, Trey, and Zenith, that my kids will look at their father's life and say, wow, that's something that we can mimic, copy, and we appreciate who our father was. That's the first thing.
Love it.
Right? Second, from that is that I want to be able to, as now we're impacting kids, a friend of mine from high school, Jason Clark, put together the pledge, right? The mission pledge. And now a school district of like 10,000 kids are using that pledge. They're using it for programming. They're helping kids stay off the streets. They're helping kids go to college. Wow. Because when you say I pledge allegiance to my success and do my very best, there's a place, an anchor mission, right? That's why I say every mission is different. But I think a big piece here that I don't want to be remiss of, Jordan, before we kind of end this is that we live in a world today, right? For the listening audience, you live in a world today that is constantly grabbing your attention like never before. You got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, WhatsApp. You got text messages, phone calls, whatever apps you have on your system, whatever thing. You have 7 email, you have 9, 10 things to check a day, right? You have to respond to them all, because if you don't respond, people think you're ghosting them, right? You have all these things in the midst of all this busyness and all this craziness, right? We forget about having an anchor for ourselves, right? You forget about anchoring yourself, and you can never forget about anchoring yourself, because if your core operating system is not intact, you can't respond to all these things, right? And so, like, one of the reasons why I was honored, right, to be able to come here and do that is because, you know, what the system, the planner system gave me was an anchor, right? No matter what's happening, okay, here are my goals for the week. Okay, guess what? I don't have enough money. Well, I'm not gonna have enough money anyway. Let me go make some more money, right? Okay, this is what responded that the teenagers acting crazy, or this is happening, whatever's happening in your life, right? Okay, I got aging parents, I got this going on. Like, you have an anchor, a personal operating system, right? That anchors your activities, what you do, how you do it, and it anchors you, right? It anchors you in a busy world that's constantly, brothers, grabbing your attention, constantly, like, you know, sometimes people they're like, I just throw the phone. They're like, I don't want to, you know, but anchoring yourself, right, I just thought about this example. It's like, what happens with a boat when you just allowed it to sit on water?
It just goes wherever the
tide takes them, right? What happens to that boat? It goes wherever the tide takes them. What happens when that boat drops that anchor? That's heavy enough, weighted, strong, and has a structure. It can let that waves can come and go, and that boat will stay generally in that same area. And that's how you want to be. You want to be so anchored in your life that generally you have that response, right? Generally, you're going to make that decision. Generally, you're going to have that type of ethic. Generally, you're going to make sure that you're mindful of this. Generally, like, you know, I was, you know, I made for instance, a goal, a mission. I wanted to make sure I created for my children, right? I have a daughter. I wanted to create like a daddy-daughter date system, right, with her. And I put it part of the plan. And so generally, right, she has that feeling that, okay, hey, dad cares about me, even when I'm busy, right? I'm going to have my date. I'm going to have my time, right? These are important things that anchor you in life. Because look, all the money, all the success, all the accolades, I just talked to a lady today at the airport. You know, she just became the chief commercial officer, like CEO of this big company, everything else. And she made the comment, like, what she's really proud of is that, you know, she's had her marriage for 35 years, right? What she's really proud of is that she's, you know, accomplished all these intangible things. And that's, to me, when you have a planner, when you have an anchor, that's what that does. It grounds the essence, the soul. So you're not just moving on the waves wherever the wind blows. That make sense?
Yeah, I love it. And that's a great point to really end on, because at the end of the day, no matter what you're dealing with, no matter what life is throwing your way, no matter your background, no matter your circumstances, you take personal responsibility. You create this internal operating system, this mission, and it ties you, right? So we appreciate you being here. This has been amazing. And, you know, we generally end our podcast with a bit of a challenge. And so I'll kind of throw that over to John to kind of leave our listeners with a challenge before we take off here.
I'm going to take it and go right to David as our guest. Please issue a challenge.
All right. You know what the challenge today should be? The challenge today, for those who are listening, right, is right now, right, ask yourself the question, first off, do you have an operating system, right? I would say, just, you know, a shameless plug here, I don't get paid for this, okay, is that I think that the planning system is a great operating system to operate by and give you structure to do goals, planning for the week and for the day, right? I'll let you guys talk about this. That's you all's world, right? But more so for those that have it, even if you don't have it, right? Make an audacious goal.
Yeah.
That's beyond yourself. Because sometimes, even with the planning, right? Let's talk about this, right, John? Even with the planning, sometimes it's good to be steady, disciplined, but it can get mundane because you're just doing the same thing, right? Which is good. Make an audacious goal. So I'm going to do one, right? I'm going to do one right now.
I love it.
Like an audacious goal, right? I'm in my mission and what I'm doing. I'm going to make an audacious goal. Although I got my own kids, all this type of stuff, I'm going to, in the next 2 weeks, intentionally work on setting time to mentor somebody, right, in the world that's been reaching out to me and wanting my time. And I've been keeping my time sacred because I want to make sure my family is first. But I want to make an audacious goal to say, okay, I want to commit time and let that person know, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you like an hour a month for us to go through and mentor. You know what I'm saying? And talk through. Yeah. So I want to make that goal. That's for myself. Yeah. I want to make a goal. So I'm going to ask the audience,
I love it.
Create an audacious goal for yourself. Something you haven't done before, something you haven't committed to that you can commit to, because sometimes you need to stretch ourselves. We need to stretch ourselves to do something different, to create new life, new energy, right, and new missions.
I love it. I think that's a great, an audacious goal. I think that's a great challenge. And listen, we appreciate you. We want you to know that we're here. The reason we started this podcast, the reason David came out is, and he said this right beforehand, was to give back, and to help you find ways to be able to lead your life. So if you haven't already, really spend some time, get grounded, create a personal pledge, find ways that you can truly create something in your life. If life is worth living, it's worth really focusing on it. And so that's our message for today. I hope you have a great day. Follow us and make sure you hit that subscribe button and share the show. Share the show so everybody can get this great message that David flew in and did for us. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.